Hey everyone, welcome to part 2 of my supernatural childbirth stories. If you haven't watched part 1, then you can click on the white banner or strip above and watch that now. In part 1, I talk about my anxieties around childbirth. I talk about the fibroids that I had, and I talk about my first birth, which was an unmedicated natural birth. In part 2, in this video, I'm going to talk about my second and third and fourth births. So hey, welcome back to my pregnancy, my supernatural childbirth stories. So I'm going to start off with my second and my third births, and they were both very similar, so I'm going to talk about them together. So as I mentioned in part 1, I got pregnant again very soon after giving birth to my first child. So my first child was 5.5 months old when I got pregnant. And both my second and third births were very, they were really good births. I had no problems. The fibroids never came back again. So with both births, actually, when my contractions started at night, what I did for both of them was I got out of bed and I was just so full of joy and excitement about the fact that I was about to give birth. And then I would go downstairs and play gospel music and just praise and worship. So I think for both the second and the third, I probably did like the praise and worship for about 40 minutes. And then I went back up and woke my husband up, and then we both went to the hospital. And for the second birth, I squatted for the second birth, and in sort of like 2 pushes, I had given birth to my baby, and I loved that. So for the third birth, I squatted again, and both those births probably took about under 2 hours. And I felt so blessed after each one of them, and the babies were born healthy, and I went home the next day. And as with my first birth, both my second and my third births were natural and unmedicated. So when I got pregnant with my fourth child, I was really used to the whole thing. I knew that I wanted to squat to give birth. I'd had the same consultant for the first birth, the second birth, and the third birth, and I thought I'm going to have the same consultant again for the fourth birth, and I felt like I knew what to expect. So generally, like with the other pregnancies, the pregnancy went well. I had no complaints, I had no issues. I mean, I probably was a bit more tired. I had 3 children, 4 years old and under, so I was quite active. But apart from that, everything went really well. So when I got to 37 weeks, I started noticing that I was feeling a bit itchy on my skin. Now, with the previous pregnancies, by the time I'd gotten to the end, my skin had tended to feel a bit sort of sensitive. So I thought nothing of it when my skin started feeling itchy this time. But over the next few days, it got worse, and it eventually, just within like 3 days, got really uncomfortable. I was itching everywhere, especially on the palms of my hands and on the soles of my feet, and then in between my fingers. And it was so like frustrating because it was like the itching was under my skin. So even if I scratched, it was like I wasn't actually getting to the real source of the itching, and it was really uncomfortable. So I made an appointment with the consultant, and I said, I don't know what's going on, but I'm really itching. It's really uncomfortable and something is not right. So they did a blood test for me, and when the results came back, the consultant explained to me that I had what was called cholestasis. And that is when the liver cannot excrete bile properly, and then it kind of causes this itching. And so the consultant explained to me that the cholestasis was a concern because it increased the likelihood of stillbirth for in the pregnancy, and the consultant recommended that I be induced for labor because basically I had gone full term, because by this time I was over 37 weeks, and the consultant was like, look, you know, there's no point in carrying on with the pregnancy with that risk. Is it really worth it? Why not, you know, come in to be induced and have the baby? And so I had a decision to make. I went home that day, and my husband and I spoke about it, and I prayed about it. And obviously it was a very difficult decision because you know, obviously the thought of stillbirth was not something that, you know, I wanted. So when I prayed to God about it, I sensed that God was saying, trust me, I will take care of you, I will not fail you. Trust me, let this pregnancy just continue and naturally, you know, let contractions start and give birth naturally. And I just, you know, I said, you know, I'm going to trust God. God has always been faithful. God has never let me down. So I spoke to the consultant and I said, I've thought about it and I've prayed about it. And I've decided that I won't come in to be induced. I will continue with the pregnancy and, you know, wait for kind of the contractions to start and natural labor to start. And the consultant said, okay, well, you know, like, that's your choice, but I also have to let you know about something else. Because of your age, because at this stage, at my fourth pregnancy, I was 41 years old, and the consultant said, because of your age, you must have your baby by 40 weeks, because when a woman is over 40, we found that there is a higher risk of stillbirth if the pregnancy continues past 40 weeks. So it was like this double kind of double risk that was going on. And the consultant also said, and I also have to let you know that I will not be around for your birth because I have to be somewhere else. So another consultant will be with you at the birth. So that was all on my mind, but I kept on praying about it, and I just continued to trust in God. So I continued to trust in God, but it was really difficult. Every morning when I would wake up, it was like attacks from the devil, and it was just this constant like doubts and fiery arrows from the devil. So I don't want to just distress anyone, and I hope no one will be distressed by this, but it was like the devil would say, your baby's going to die, you've made the wrong decision, it's not going to go well for you this time, God can't help you this time. And every day I would have to kind of like fight the good fight of faith and just recommit to faith in God. And so at this stage I was about 38, almost 39 weeks, and the clinic called me and said basically, as the consultant had explained to me, that because of my age, if I hadn't had the baby by 40 weeks, I was to come in on that day, and they were going to make an appointment for me to be induced. So the induction was either going to happen that day or the next day. And so, you know, every day I would say, Father Lord, you know, help me. If I am making a mistake, if I've made the wrong decision, God, please just reveal it to me. I don't want anything to happen to my baby. And like I said, it was like a fight of faith, a fight to believe in God's faithfulness despite all the doubts that were coming at me. So the pregnancy continued, and you know, I just continued to pray, and every time I was worried that, oh, is the baby moving, is the baby not moving, I would just say, my God is a God of faithfulness. So on the day that I was 40 weeks pregnant, I woke up and I was like, well, God, you know, I've given everything to you. And I thought, well, today I'm going to go in and make an appointment and I may be induced today. But I said, you know what, Father Lord, I give everything to you. And so what typically used to happen, I'd wake up in the morning, get breakfast ready for the children. My husband would take the children to school, and then I would go back to sleep for another couple of hours. And so, that happened that day. I got my children ready. They went off to school. I went to sleep. And I woke up a couple of hours later, so it would probably have been around midday. And I woke up and I felt these twinges at my back, which have always been for me the first sign that my contractions started. Now, usually with my past pregnancies, when my contractions started like that, I would be like, okay, I've got time, and, as with my first pregnancy, actually, when the contractions started like that, that could go on for like a day or two. But this time I was excited and I just willed it. I said, God, the contractions have started. I am going to have this baby today. And I was so excited. I called my husband and I said, look, the contractions have started. And my husband was like, are you sure? And I said, yes, I am sure the contractions have started. So a couple of hours later, we went to the hospital. So when we got to the hospital, I went into the birthing room and there was a midwife there already. And so it was the usual thing, the birthing ball, they brought the birthing ball. I asked for gas and air. I sat on the birthing ball. And it was only after all this had happened that I actually met the consultant that was going to be in charge of my birth. And I guess because I think maybe the consultant assumed that because it was my fourth birth that, things would just take their own course. And also we didn't know each other. So the previous consultant that had birthed me for my first and second and third pregnancies would always observe how I moved on the birthing ball, and then would let me know when it was time to push. But this consultant kept on going in and out of the room, and the consultant asked me like, oh, on a scale of 1 to 10, how does the pain feel? And I guess for me, I find questions like that really difficult to answer because it's all relative. So as I'm answering, I'm thinking to myself, maybe I'm someone with a higher pain threshold, so maybe I should say this, but maybe this doctor, so it was really difficult for me to answer the questions. And the consultant said to me, no matter what, don't try and push now, because if you keep on trying to push, you will just make your cervix very sort of sore and a bit swollen, and then it may be difficult for you to like give birth to the baby. And I'm always someone that, with all my other births, I had listened very attentively to what the consultant said. And so when the consultant said that, I was like, okay, fine, I'll do that. And then this consultant, like I said, kept on going in and out of the room. So I'm going through all the contractions and the labor, and, so the labor is kind of getting more intense. And the midwife was there to monitor, because I had to have a midwife in there all the time to monitor me because of this cholestasis, because of this diagnosis, this condition that they had diagnosed. So obviously the contractions are getting more intense. Now I started, in the midst of it, I was thinking, gosh, I am sweating a lot. And usually with birth, you are sweating a lot anyway, but this time, I don't know, something was different. So while I was in the midst of contractions and the contractions were getting closer and closer together, I heard a midwife come in and speak to the midwife that was already in the room. And she looked at the monitors, because they had these monitors attached to me, monitoring my heartbeat, but also monitoring the baby's heartbeat. And the midwife said, call the doctor in straight away. This baby needs to come out right now. So, I could hear what the midwife was saying, but like I said, I was in the midst of the contractions. And I also had this peace. There's a Bible passage that says, we're surrounded by his favor as with a shield. And so the favor of God was around me, and it was like his shield. And thank God that was the case, because all the things that happened afterwards, if I had panicked at any point, I think that that would have, affected the outcome. So the consultant comes in and obviously speaks to the midwife. And so I think the midwife communicated to the consultant that, look, we've got to get this baby out now from what we can see on the monitors. And so the consultant then said to me, and I was on the birthing ball, contractions, and the consultant kind of comes down to my level, looks in my face and says, basically, I'm not going to say exactly what the consultant said, but you can kind of get the inference. And the consultant basically said, there's an issue, the baby has to come out. And so I'm looking at this consultant, and I think because I didn't react in the normal way that, the consultant expected me to react, the consultant kind of said it again, but with a bit more like emphasis, and said, if your baby does not come out now. And I laughed. I just laughed. And I think the consultant thought I was mad. So this is why I laughed. I didn't even know that I laughed, and I didn't even have any control of the laughter, but it was like in my spirit, I am a child of God. I know who I am, and I know whose I am. And like I said, I was surrounded with the favor of God. So when that was said to me, what the consultant said, it was like, no, that will never be my portion, because I am a child of God. So it was like I was literally laughing in the devil's face. But obviously this consultant did not understand all that and just thought, I don't know what's going on with this woman. And just basically the consultant then sort of actually got quite agitated and said, you've got to get on the bed. You've got to have this baby now. And I said, okay, but can I squat? And the consultant was like, no, you cannot squat. You've got to get on the bed. And so I got on the bed, and I could see that the consultant was a bit agitated and a bit stressed. And then the consultant said, I'm going to use the suction as well so that we can get this baby out quickly. And so the consultant used the suction, and I pushed, and my baby was born. And my baby was born healthy and well, and there was, just God's favor. Everything was fine. And they brought the baby to me, and I held my baby, and I was just so thankful to God, because as God always does, he had gone ahead of me, and he had taken care of everything, and he was in control of everything that happened. So I was so thankful to God. And then, eventually, as usual, I was taken to my room, and the next day the consultant actually came to see me and was very apologetic about the way things had gone. And I said, you know what, honestly, it really, for me, I am thankful. I have my baby, and that's the most important thing. I have my baby, and even with all that happened and having the baby, I still had a natural birth. I still had an unmedicated birth. I didn't tear. I didn't need any stitches, and that's so I have so much cause to be thankful, and that's just that was God, the blessing of God. So here my birth stories come to an end. I really hope that my experience, my testimony has encouraged you, and shown you that no matter how we see ourselves, with God we can do anything. Without God, I could not have had these natural births. I could not have had these joyful births. And so I am really thankful to God. If you would like to continue to listen to more of my testimonies, more of my experiences, more of what God has done for me in so many areas of my life, then please subscribe to my channel. You can click on the subscribe button below the screen, or you can click on the subscribe link in the description box. Please leave a comment and let me know what you thought. Let me know about your own experiences. Please share this video with anybody that you know, friend, family, or colleague who you think that would really benefit from listening to it. And again, thank you so much for listening. God bless, and speak soon.